Hello and welcome back. I'm Multeyemeteor. This is Magic 2014, and we're taking a look at Enter the Dracomancer. Probably Dracomancer, I don't know. Either way, it was kind of requested by a sub, so I promised that this would be the next deck that I took a look at. And to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of this deck, and that should come as no surprise. It's probably not that shocking for most of you because it is not that great of a deck, but it's not that bad either. Like before I started unlocking cards for it, I kind of felt that I kind of rode along with the hype, and people were saying that this is the worst deck, along with Masks of the Dimir. Masks of the Dimir, I felt got a bad rap, but I think it's definitely up there with all of the other, let's call them tier 2 decks. In that it there are definitely some matchups that it has difficulty handling, but it is so much more of a Demir deck than Rogue's Gallery was last year, and even though that's not saying much, it's just much more strong. It has a very good tempo game. Enter the Dracomancer seemed a little bit I don't know, slow without a decent game plan, so on and so forth. But as I started like unlocking the cards, I felt that this deck sort of came together. But let's take a look at it here. Um, all right, straight off the bat, I'm running 3 Terramorphic Expanses. I'm only running 3 swamps as well, 12 mountains, and 6 forests. Even though that you want the forest to go get you the lands, or sorry, to go get you more lands to ramp up. I don't feel that you need all that many forests. You just need to mull into a hand where you have a forest and a mountain or something like that, and perhaps a Terramorphic Expanse, perhaps something else, cultivate or something. Aside from that, I run all the Tukatong Thalids, both as chump blockers and also as fodder for my dragons. Gives me some early drops. I run the Banefire because it's solid removal. It is flexible removal as well. And the I guess I kind of confused it with Disintegrate. Well, a Disintegrate would have been nice because you would be able to take care of creatures that came back from the grave. But oh well. You have literally you have dragon fodder, and I think that you have the option of running. I think you have the option of running 4, but I'm only running 3 of them, just because I didn't feel I had the room. Plus, I didn't want my strategy just to be build a board of weenies and then count on big fatty dragons. I wanted something in the middle there. I run 3 of the 4 Dragon Speaker Shamans because they make it so that that the dragons come in way earlier. That's part of the obvious reason for running them, but the inobvious, well, the obvious but kind of unpronounced reason is that it changes the tempo quite significantly. It makes it so that you're able to drop fatties earlier, and I know it's kind of the same, but it's a different kind of frame of mind that your opponent has to be in, and that's why they usually target this guy. And the reason that I'm running 3 of them is 2 of them actually in game doesn't really do all that much for you. It does something in terms of being able to drop the bigger dragons, yet it is like at that point you might already have enough lands to be able to drop the bigger dragons, with the mana you have and the single Dragon Speaker Shaman. The reason why you want a couple is that at least for the first one you drop, your opponent is relying heavily on his removal to take the Dragon Speaker Shaman away from you, and once you drop those big dragons with what's it called, with Devour, you might just want to spend or use 1 or 2 of them to pump up that dragon. So yeah, I mean, it's not a solid game plan, but it's definitely like it works. And the fact that he helps you ramp up is nice. All right, Jund Battle Mage is great because it's flexible. It's a little slow, but it's very flexible. And in the early game, this deck is a little bit slow. It doesn't have too much of a strategy. I guess you could build it around having more of a strategy other than just ramping up and killing your opponent's creatures. But the this guy kind of fits that role of actually having a early mid game strategy where you pump out tokens that ward off your opponent, or which is able to, feed up your dragons. So I like him a lot. Also, he has the added bonus of being able to ping your opponent, which is nice because like it's a direct way of dealing damage, and sometimes you just need those singular or those 1, 2, 3 pings for your opponent to be in a lot of trouble. So yeah, definitely like it. Jund Charm, I'm running both of them for the flexibility. I mean, the first effect, exile all cards from target player's graveyard, is great against dead walkers. It's great against, I guess it's great against Fire Wave as well because of the phoenixes, Phoenix. I don't know. The second effect, to deal 2 damage to each creature, sometimes bites you in the back when it comes to sacrificing your cannon fodder there. But those Thalids, for example, come back in the form of sapling tokens. So while your opponent loses a lot of creatures early game, you lose like the first battalion of your Thalids, and then you're sitting back with a lot of sapling tokens. So you still have those creatures to chump block and to feed your dragons. And it's kind of cool that you can that it's an instant spell, so you could use it as a combat trick as well. Furthermore, the third ability is sometimes also relevant because it gets to do 2 more damage, or like do that combat trick where your opponent thinks he's he has the advantage in a combat exchange, or that you're about to trade, and he makes that necessary decision to trade his Sarah Angel for some kind of 4/4 dragon that you have, and you just throw a charm down. He's tapped out, or he has nothing, and you come out on top, and he doesn't have a Sarah Angel. You can now start swinging in. Soul's Fire, I run all of them because it is pretty fucking insane in this deck. The fact that you for 3 at an instant speed can remove creatures or deal direct damage to an opponent makes this very, very powerful. I've seen people play this twice in one turn, play 2 of them, and just utterly destroy an opponent, where the opponent thought, okay, my opponent has this dragon and so on, but I'm sort of fortified, and next turn I blah 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 blah. No, next turn you get destroyed by 2 Soul's Fires, because this is damage that gets in without you having to worry about blockers. This is damage that gets in without you having to worry about your creature surviving if your opponent has removal spells and so on. So very, very powerful. I'm running all 4 of them. And there are times that you even want to use it with a Dragon Speaker Shaman to take out a powerful 2/2 or something like that. Maelstrom Pulse, I don't run all 3. I didn't think I had. I like it. I like it a lot. I think it's very powerful, and it takes care of tokens for one. It takes care of duplicates. It takes care of other things than creatures as well, which makes it very powerful. But I don't need 3 of them, especially because Soul's Fire is a card that also removes, but it has flexibility in terms of being able to be thrown at your opponent's face so you can do damage. You can't do that with Maelstrom Pulse, so there are times where you wish that you could do damage, but you're forced to use you only have a Maelstrom Pulse to take care of things for you. Alright, I run 3, not 4 of Cultivate. I think you can run an extra, yeah. Because it is, it's a great way of ramping up for sure. but there are times where it's just not that relevant because you have, like, you don't really need a lot of lands to get this deck working, which is the charm of this deck. Even though you have those fatties, you get to land drop 6, 7, 8 fairly quick, I would say. The trick is to get the right land combination, and with 3 cultivates and 3 terramorphic expanses, you should have a decent chance at getting the combo down, or the to getting the right amount of lands down there. So I don't think that that it's that necessary to run all 4, especially because there are times where cultivate just doesn't do anything for you, so you don't want to be drawing too many of them at the wrong times. So you could even make the case for not running like 3, but just running 2. But I think that's a little excessive for my taste. Spellbreaker Behemoth is a card that I consider taking out, though it is a 4-drop, and the fact that it is a 5/5 4-drop with a pretty decent ability makes it so that I chose to run it anyway, just to be able to have a 5/5 on the ground on turn 4, if I had the right mana combination, so I could actually ward off my opponent. One of the reasons that I'm considering taking it back out is that it has a double forest in its casting cost, and that it's not a flyer. But for me, it's a huge not chump blocker, but it's a huge defender in a sense. And if you're lucky, you get to swing in and do 5 points of damage with them. But aside from that, it works great with the Soul's Fire. But aside from that, it is basically to ward off your opponent's creatures. At least from my opinion, in my opinion. Hellkite Hatchling is pretty decent, I guess, but I wouldn't run all 4 because it takes a lot of creatures to make it significant. So usually you just want to throw 1 or 2 creatures into it, unless you know that 3, 4, 5 creatures is going to be making a difference, so you can kill your opponent in 1 or 2 turns. Aside from that, you don't get a lot of value from the Devour because it's only Devour 1. But the fact that it also gains trample and it's cheap to cast is pretty nice, so you want to run a couple of them. You could even run 3 of them, perhaps take out the Spellbreaker Behemoth and run an extra Hellkite Hatchling. But right now, I just feel that there are these times where I'm just going to be dropping it as a 4 cost 2/2. I won't have anything for it to devour, but it is going to be a chump blocker because my opponent has the advantage on board, and I feel that the Spellbreaker Behemoth, for the same amount of mana, more or less, 1 extra forest, 1 less colorless, at least 4 mana all in all, gives me a 5/5 where I don't have any conditions where I have to sacrifice anything. And it does give me some added effects there, which are not too relevant in this format, but it's definitely not something to sneeze at, because it makes it so that your opponent can't surprise you with a counter spell once you start dropping those fatties. Aside from that, I run Ogre Battle Driver, which is an insane card, but at the same time, I think if it was a 2/2 rather than a 3/3, I would definitely not run it. The 3/3 makes all the difference in the world because it makes it so that it's actually significant when it's on the table. If it was a 2/2, it was too easily tradable, and the fact that it's a 3/3 makes it so that you can kill off some of your opponent's smaller guys, like 1/1s and 2/2s and so on. And once you're able to, for example, if you played a Dragon Speaker Shaman the turn before, then play Ogre Battle Driver, then the next turn, any dragon that you have is going to be insane because it comes in with haste, it comes in with +2/+0, and from there on, your opponent should, be forced to his knees, more or less. It's very, very powerful to be able to have this effect trigger. The problem with this card is that it's a little slow, and it comes in with with a crosshair on its forehead, more or less. The thing that kind of redeems it is that it doesn't it's not taken care of with a shock, for example. So not all removal will be able to kill it, and that's very significant, I think, because it does take certain kind of removal to kill this guy. Crucible of Fire, you can run several of them. I think you can run 2 or 3. Yeah, you can run. Okay, you can run 2 of them. I don't think it's worth it, to be honest. Yeah, no, I don't think it's worth it because it's just too slow. It's an added bonus once you have it down, which is great. But if you don't like until you get to play it, or until the turn after you get to play it, and until you have some dragons into play, it doesn't do anything for you. You don't want to be drawing this instead of a creature. But one is significant because once you have the dragons down, even the hatchlings, and you play Crucible of Fire, your whole side is buffed, your whole side is incredible, and it's very, very difficult to take care of your creatures in combat and with direct damage removal. Yet it is considered this way, casting cost aside, because it makes it much slower. But I forget what it's called. Man, my memory my memory is awful. The Avacyn's Glory enchantment that gives all white creatures +1/+1. Think of how significant that card is for your entire deck when you're playing Avacyn's Glory. Think of how significant it is that your tiny creatures, that you're able to drop for 1 or 2 mana are now +1/+1. It makes it so that it's value across the board, more or less. This enchantment kind of does the same in triplicates, yet it doesn't, because you don't have, for example, let's say dragon hatchlings, or like the cheapest dragon you have is a Hellkite hatchling. So you're not gonna get the same value. You're gonna get a lot of value for sure, but you're not gonna get the same kind of value where you drop tiny creatures, which are big, just because of one enchantment. So it's not going to do as much for you as that particular enchantment, which I always forget what it's called in Avacyn's Glory, but it is going to do something for you. It's a slower version of it. It's a bigger version of it, but it doesn't help your entire side. It doesn't help your small guys. It only helps from Hellkite Hatchling and up, and only in terms of dragons. But it's still a good card to have one of, because it makes your whole side, it makes all your bombs that much more of a significant threat, and not just significant, an imminent threat, I would say. Broodmate Dragon is insane because it doesn't do a lot, except that it makes a copy of itself, more or less. Not an exact copy, but you get 2 for 4 dragons for 6. And if you have a single Dragon Speaker Shaman down, you get to cast it for 4. So it's just value on the board. So very, very cool. And you just need dragons. You need flyers, evasive creatures that can fly over your opponent's head. So most of the time, once you get to land drop 6, 7, that stuff, or at least you have the power to cast creatures of that converted mana cost, your opponent will perhaps not be able to follow you in terms of being able to drop flying creatures that can trade or chump or take care of, or something to that effect, your dragons. Because once you start dropping those dragons, your side is going to be insane quickly. Dragon Broodmother is it's pretty good. It's actually, no, let me rephrase that. It's really, really good, and the reason for that is that it's the beginning of like at the beginning of not your upkeep, but each upkeep you get to put a 1/1 red-green dragon creature token with flying and devour 2 onto the battlefield. Now the really cool thing about this is like on your opponent's turn, like the first turn after you drop this, you're going to put a 1/1 red-green dragon into play. On your turn, you're going to put another into play, and it's just going to eat that first dragon, and you get a 3/3 flying creature. Next turn, your opponent's turn, you're just going to do the same over and over. So uh, every time you have an upkeep, you're going to get a 3/3 flying dragon instead of all these 1/1 weenies, and you're not, well, maybe at some point you want to save up and put in a huge fatty dragon instead, but like just pump out a lot of 3/3s, and at some point your opponent just can't keep up anymore. Flame Blast Dragon is so insane if you actually get to cast it and swing in with it, because it is removal on a stick. You get to remove every time it swings in, as long as you have the mana for it. And if you can cast this guy, even if you cast it with a Dragon Speaker Shaman, you can do 3 points of damage. That's going to do, like, if that's turn 4 for you, that's a great turn. Because then turn 5, if you drop a land, even if you don't, if you get land screwed, you only have the 4 lands, you can still swing in, and on your opponent's turn 4 or 5, you're able to kill off his 3/3s with this dragon, and that sets him back quite a bit. So really great dragon. In other cases where you're just gonna drop it for 6, you're going to have the ability to swing in the next turn and do 5 or 6 points of damage directly to your opponent's face, or to take care of angels or whatever, like big threats on the ground and so on and so forth. It's just a great creature. It also takes care of those. It takes care of the Nighthawks, vampire Nighthawks. It takes care of the, I think they're called Gloom Widow spiders, the ones that with reach and death touch. So you just kill off those creatures so you're able to swing in, and this is kind of a passage clearer. Very good creature. This is not just good, it's insane, because it has Devour 2, it has Flying, it has Haste. It's sometimes just worth sacking your other dragons to make it huge, swing in, and do damage. It's worth sacking a lot of things for this guy, because it has Flying and Haste, or sorry, yeah, it has Flying and Haste, and it has Devour 2. So you might be able to make, like, the first turn you drop this guy, you might be able to do a swing of 10 points of damage, for example, even more, depending on what you have on the table. And if your opponent doesn't see that coming, if he's a little down in life, that's going to change the game, like, real quick. Yeah, I'm running both of them, by the way. Then you have Sangrite Surge. I guess you can run 2 of them. I just need the one, I think. Because some of the times it's not going to be that significant for you, but there are these times where, for example, you have a dragon down, your opponent is preparing for, okay, I'm going to be taking 5 points of damage, I'm going to be taking 6 points of damage, something like that, and then you drop this and he's going to be taking, let's see, 16 or 18 points of damage instead, and he's probably not prepared for that. So that's why you want to have at least, you want to have one of these, because it's a game ender, it's a bomb, it's a surprise in a sense. Then the second to last card that I'm running is Karthus, Tyrant of Jund. 7 cost 7/7 flying haste, and when it enters the battlefield, gain control of all dragons, then untap all dragons. Other dragon creatures you control have haste. Now, that's only going to be significant in the mirror match, I think. Or if your opponent steals some of your creatures or clones some of your creatures. But it's still nice. I think the reason you want to run it still is that it's a 7/7 for 7 with haste. The fact that it has haste makes it just makes all the difference in the world. Of course it has flying because it's a dragon, but the fact that it also has haste is just insane, because it makes it so that your opponent can't prepare for it. Well, he can prepare, but it's difficult to prepare for. And the only reason you want to run him aside from that is that you also run Dragon Speaker Shamans and ramp cards, so that you're actually able to get to land drop 7 or be able to cast him a little bit earlier than land drop 7. So Yeah. But this is a guy, however, who's also pretty nuts. And he doesn't have Devour, but he has Flying, Haste, and Trample. And that is significant because that means that your opponent can't chomp. Well, he can jump, but it doesn't really make a difference. And it has Fire Breathing, and he has Regenerate. So this guy is very difficult to take care of. And that's why, like, you have to run this guy because he's just so fucking good. Like this is a bomb that you like with this card, kind of like not exactly like, but kind of like Chant of Moldaya. You don't worry about the fact that that you have to make it to land drop 8 because you have a lot of ramp going on in this deck. You could have even more that I'm running, but I want to have a mid-game strategy as well, which I feel that you're sacrificing when you focus too heavily on just ramping. Um, yeah, this guy is insane, and you get to land drop 8 unless your opponent is playing really aggressively in theirs, and you just don't get the draws that you need. But yeah, this is the way I run the deck. You can see the curve down here. I have a bunch of 1 drops. I have fewer 2 drops. I have a lot of 3 drops. Like a really wonky curve, basically. And then I have a lot of fatties. Well, I have 8, so that's 6 drop and above here. I guess from here on and up, I don't have any 5 drops. So you can see that this middle curve here solidifies my mid-game strategy, and I'm definitely working my way towards the end game, which I want to promote. I want to make it come faster in a sense. And this guy helps, by the way, making dragons like this have haste and make them stronger. The same with this, and so on and so forth. Like each of these tokens will have haste and be bigger, and so on and so forth. Like there's, like you want to. It's not going to be an aggro deck, but you want to kind of skew the difference from fatty late game to mid game, a little bit more aggro with this deck. And the only reason you can do that in a 3-color deck is if you solidify with creatures, if you solidify with removal and ramp spells and so on. So yeah, this is the way I run it. Let's take a look at the cards that I'm not running here. Not running the last Terramorphic Expanse. I have 24 lands. In my experience, that's enough. Dragon Breath. I don't run any of either Dragon Breath or Dragon Teeth. I don't think they're that good, to be honest. Not that significant. I mean, sure, there might be someone. I think most of you guys will agree that these cards are somewhat terrible. It's not difficult to construct a situation in your mind, like a theoretical situation where these cards will help you out with haste or with trample and pump your guys a little bit. But aside from those situations, it's just not good cards. Like you just want, like every other card I run is more significant on board. So it's just filler that doesn't do a lot for you. Artifact mutation. Yeah, it's. I can definitely see this being a good card towards your strategy, except for the fact that there's not a lot of artifacts in this format. And for example, if Crosswinds was a thing, then you could use this to kill off their panoptic mirror when they drop that. But Crosswinds is a thing of the past. There's not a lot of artifacts in this year's format. If they do go ahead and make an artifact deck, then this is definitely a sideboardable card because it's cool to be able to, at instant speed, kill artifacts and get creatures that you can use as dragon fodder. Aside from that, it doesn't really do anything, and if it's only used to take out the staffs of the something magus, like the different magus staffs, then sure you get 3 saprolings, but who the hell runs these staffs? I mean, I don't know. Dragon fodder, yeah, I already talked about it. I don't. Oh, what the hell? uh, uh, what the hell did I put in? Oh, okay. Let's get that out real quick. Okay. There's no reason to well, you can make the case that it's better than the Thalit or something like that because you get two goblins that you can sack immediately. But I don't know. I don't really know. I think the Thalits are a little bit more flexible, also because you can board wipe and still keep one creature or still get one creature back and so on. Still, you don't want too much fodder, but some fodder is great. And I'm still run. I'm out of those four Thalids and the four Dragon Fodders. I'm running 7 of those cards, so you can see that it's definitely a part of my strategy right there. Dragon Speaker Shaman already talked about it. I don't think I need 4. Basically, it's not a great card to draw late game. It's not a great card to draw too many of. Borderland Ranger, I would consider running it if it put the land into play, but the fact that it doesn't means that it's a way of getting the card that you need when you're kind of land screwed, or when you in some way, shape, or form don't, when you need a specific land, but it's not a way of ramping up. Like you can't, you know, skip ahead a turn in terms of land drops. So I don't want that card in my deck. I think it's too slow, and once it's down, it's just dragon fodder, and it's a little too expensive for that. If it was a 2 cost, then sure, I would play 1 or 2, I guess. Consume Strength is a card that I really consider, because in the early game, I consider running, because in the early game, what's cool about it is that you have all those weenies, you have all the 1/1s and a couple of 2/2s maybe, and your opponent is gonna be perhaps faster than you, building up his side with creatures that are more of a threat on the board. So when he swings in, you can surprise him and use a weenie to trade with, or not trade, well, perhaps trade with, but probably kill one of his guys. And if it's a guy that, for example, like Champion of the Parish, that's gonna get huger and huger, then you don't have to chump. You just kill him, get rid of him, and he's not a threat anymore. So that, plus it's removal, early game removal. But I think it's too contextual for this deck, and late game it's not going to do a lot for you. So like, I mean, you could definitely come up again with a theoretical situation where this card will do something for you, where it's going to be significant, but I don't think it does enough for you to warrant a card space in the main deck there. Maelstrom Pulse, well, I already talked about it. It's just such a great card, but you don't want to run too many of them, or I don't want to run too many of them. Same with Cultivate, great card, but you don't want to be Cultivate flooded. You don't want too many of these rather than creatures. And it's already, I'm running 19 creatures, and that's kind of like the consequence of me taking out some of these spells that I would otherwise perhaps consider running. But you definitely need that mid game rather than these spells. Hellkite Hatchling, already talked about it. Don't really think I need all of them, because they don't do enough for you if you don't have everything else going for you. It needs a lot of things to like it. It needs at least one sacrificable creature to be somewhat significant, and even then, at this point, you might end up just chomping with him. So don't put too many Hellkite Hatchling eggs in your bag or in one basket, so to speak. But perhaps run one more if you kind of want to rely a little bit more on it, because it is still a somewhat early drop with with the ability to evade. Bloodbraid Elf, I couldn't believe the fact that I had to take it out. I thought that was ridiculous, even especially in a Junt deck. But this is not a classical or this is not by any stretch of the imagination a pro league Junt deck. So there's really no purpose to it. I mean, sure, it cascades into like this or like Soulsfire or even Dragon Speaking Shaman or something like that. But at this point, you would rather want something with a little bit more certainty to it. It's always great to get value, but you want something with certainty plus in my experience, it doesn't do much more than swing into a more solidified side or jump to something bigger, or trade with something. So I mean, it's a little bit of value, but personally, I would rather have certainty of which cards I drew, rather than a creature that doesn't do a lot for you, which doesn't do much for you aside from being a 3/2 once it's on the table, and which doesn't do much else but bring you a random card which might not be significant when you drop it. Already talked about Crucible of Fire. No need to run a couple of them. I think that's a little too much, but that's up to you, I guess. Gorgia Worm. I actually kind of like this. The only problem is that you're probably like you could be perfectly happy dropping this and not devour anything. You get a 5/5 for 5, but it doesn't have evasion, so it's just gonna be a wall or a chomp blocker or a means to take care of your opponent's land walking guys, not land walking, like non-flying guys. And I mean that's great and all, but I chose Spellbreaker Behemoth instead, for that strategy, and the dragons to get in there. So don't feel that I need this guy that much. Torrent of Fire is pretty decent, but I think Soul's Fire does a better job of at instant speed and at a much lower cost of doing exactly what Torrent of Fire is wants to do. Of course, it's not exactly the same because it's converted mana cost, but in this deck, it's actually like I think once you start using your creatures as like the catalyst at this point in time for taking care of your opponent's creatures or for dealing direct damage, then Soul's Fire is just gonna do like you get to choose the creature and its power and so on, and Torrent of Fire is only going to be significant if you're dropping like if you're only sitting with a guy like this, then Soul's Fire is only going to do 2 damage, while Crucible of Fire is or Torrent of Fire, sorry, is going to do 3 points of damage. But that's 3 points of damage for 5 rather than 2 points of damage for 3. And Torrent of Fire doesn't do anything if you only have tokens on the battlefield, Sapperling or Goblin tokens, and you want and that's the only thing you have, and you want to get rid of a significant 1 toughness guy. So yeah, I don't feel that Torrent of Fire does a lot of things. I think it's a pretty terrible card in that regard. Whereas Soul's Fire is so much stronger. Yeah, so I don't run any of them because I don't think they are worth taking up card slots with. Igneous Pouncer is a nice ramp card as well, kind of. It's at least it's a great mana fixing card. I considered running a couple of them until at least I did while I was unlocking cards, but very very quickly I ran out of space for this guy. It doesn't do too much. Again, you want to go for the evasive strategy because your opponent is probably, since you don't have a lot of creatures on the ground, he's not going to be trading creatures. He's going to be solidifying his side. He's probably going to beat your face until you actually make it to those land drops where you can start dropping the dragons. So this guy is not going to be he's not going to be much of a presence. He's going to be chomping. He's going to be, well, not chomping. He's going to be trading with small guys, by the way. And a lot of the times you just want to draw swamps or cycle him from swamps to mountains. Same goes with this guy. I'm just jumping ahead a little bit. Valley ran it. Is even more expensive, and I mean once he's on the table, he's a little bit more significant because he doesn't have haste or any other abilities, but he does have 3 in the rump and 6 in the front. But aside from that, I don't really like him too much. If you really want to run either of these guys, Igneous Pouncer or Valley ran it, you want to be running them because you don't have confidence in your mana fixing ability, and I can see that definitely. These guys certainly help out in that respect, but I think it's a little like that takes up a turn of or of cycling this guy, spending mana, cycling this guy, drawing the land, which you might not be able to play this turn or something like that. So I don't think it does enough for you. Dragonlair Spider is on the paper pretty good, but the fact that I mean, I think if he was cheaper and smaller, perhaps I don't care, but cheaper, I would definitely run him because he would be a great mid-game creature to help me get out those dragon fodder creatures, the weenies that I need to sacrifice or need for my creatures to devour. But the fact that he's so expensive means that he takes up a slot that a dragon should fill up, so I don't want to run him. Plus, I guess this is very contextual as well. Its ability to pump out insects. At some points, it's going to be significant. You're going to get those creatures. At other points, your opponent is going to try to play around it a little bit, and it's just going to be taken care of. Also because it is a difficult thing to swing into. It is a 5/6, and it has reach and so on and so forth, and that makes it so that your opponent is just going to waste removal on it. Well, not waste, but he's just going to take care of it, and you end up getting one green insect creature token or something like that. So I don't think that's worth it for 6 mana. That's something that's a little bit more forgivable if you drop it for 4, for example, and it's a 3/4 or something. So yeah, I think it's a little expensive for my taste. Volcanic Dragon is, I guess it's decent. It's a little small. It has flying and haste, and it costs 6. I think I wouldn't run it in this deck because you have so many other better dragons, which with the same cost as well. But if it had some other ability, or if it was a 5 cost, I would definitely run it. But since it's a 6 cost, I think it's competing for a place that simply cannot win. Dragon Roost is too slow and too expensive. Again, it's one of those cards where theoretically you could come up with a situation where this guy or this creature, or sorry, this enchantment breaks a stalemate and wins you a game, but a lot of the time it's just not gonna be that efficient for you. And if your opponent has some kind of enchantment removal, you just feel you put too many eggs in a basket, and your opponent has ways of taking care of it. So yeah, I don't think so. Already talked about Sangrite Search. Penumbra Worm is actually pretty good in terms of value and so on. But again, he's a little too expensive, and he's competing for place to be in my deck with dragons that has evasion. So his trample is not going to be that significant. I mean, the fact that he spits out a 6/6 black worm creature token with trample is pretty awesome. Means that you can sack this guy and get yourself a token, or you can chomp at the late game, or not chomp, perhaps trade, something like that. But I mean, he's too expensive for that. I think this is a guy where you just want to be swinging in, and if they take care of him, of course you get a second guy, but it's just too expensive. I would rather have dragons that does all kinds of nifty things instead. Form of the Dragon is a card which I tried to play with a couple of times, and it actually worked out, but I think that was, playing against an AI opponent. I don't think necessarily this will help you too much against a player, like a human player, because they will start thinking of ways to get in there for 5, especially at the late game. It should be very possible. And the fact that you only have 5 life each turn kind of sucks. It would be cool if you had, like, where is it? Crucible of Fire. If this thing pumped you, because technically you're a dragon creature once you get this down, and you actually have 8 points of life, and you get to do 8 points of damage each turn. Yeah, I don't know. Like there are situations where it helps you, but it also makes you very vulnerable. So I don't want to rely on this. I would much rather go more traditional way and rely on solid strategies, and those solid strategies being the usage of big fat creatures which are very very strong and very efficient and has secondary or tertiary abilities which help you out in the late game. um, I think if you had some kind of iteration of this which was cheaper and you did less damage, your life wasn't 5, perhaps 10, or and it's not at each end step, but it was at your end step or 8 life or something like that, then perhaps it would be a fun mid game card to run because you could use it to just sap your opponent's creatures and get rid of them so that he wasn't able to do it, like surprise you that much or solidify that much in the mid game. But the fact that it's late game means that your opponent might have too many strategies. I could be wrong and so on, but it's um, the thing is that I haven't tested it enough to know if this card is actually good or not. On paper, it looks pretty bad, but it is fun to play with at least. It would be even more fun if the enchantment set slash or not slash dash dragon, so that your dragon speaker shaman helped you out with this, or that the crucible of fire pumped it up or something like that. But what can you do? Anyways, this was Enter the Dracomancer. I didn't have that much fun unlocking it most of the time. Some of the time I had a lot of fun unlocking it because it can be strong, but the rest of the time I didn't. I didn't. I felt that it was a little too weak. But once I had everything unlocked, I started, kind of feeling that, kind of like with Masks of the Dimir, that this deck is definitely coming together. There are some possibilities in it. It's not that bad. It doesn't really win against Avacyn's Glory unless Avacyn's Glory is slow on its feet, and you're able to take out the creatures and the spells, the enchantments, and so on really, really fast. Maelstrom Pulse is going to be great. You might want to put in an extra Maelstrom Pulse if you know you're going to be playing against Avacyn's Glory, because you can just directly kill those. You can take care of those Oblivion rings. You can take care of what's his names, the Fiend Hunters and so on. So yeah, and the Soul's Fire is often also going to be useful against Fiend Hunters. So yeah, definitely, you definitely have some answers for different decks, but you built this. I would say built this for the mid game. Anyways, let's move on to some matches online. I hope you enjoyed. I'm multeyemeteor. This was Enter the Dracomancer and Duels of the Planeswalkers 2014 early build. Later.